What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You're with us live on a new episode of Burnz and the Boatman. Boatman, say something.
Hi.
Okay, that's enough
I like
from
cereal.
him. Okay, we don't need all that. So we're here for our top 10 community episodes. We've got a little bit of a different format coming at you today because we do have an extra individual. We have Kaleb the King, the kid, the guy who's lost to one person in this fucking video here today. How you feeling today, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about community. I am still wrapping up my complete first time binge. I'm in the middle of season 6, but so far being in the middle of season 6, I don't think I'm missing out on making a top 10 list. But
hashtag 6 seasons in a movie. Also hashtag you're not. Lil Boat, Kaleb Boatman, how you feeling about today?
I'm feeling good. I think we've got kind of 3 different types of community fans. You've got somebody like you, Jay, who I assumed watched it when it was actually on air, right?
No. Hope.
Well, you just ruined my point then. But I didn't start watching it until like this summer. Kaleb is obviously very new with it. Jay, I assume you at least have watched it a little before I have.
I've definitely watched it multiple times. I've always had fun with this. Dan Harmon is those people that when you watch his show, you definitely know you're watching a Dan Harmon show, which is why maybe some of my list might not be as pertinent to like season 4 as some of y'all may think. But
spoiler alert, I don't have a season 4 episode on my list.
I will say spoiler alert, we don't talk about the gas leak season.
The gas leak year. Yeah.
Fair enough. So we'll get into this. Couple of quick things. So we're just gonna really quickly bust through each of our 10 through 6, and our main objective here is to get to our 5 through 1. And where everything gets a little bit crazy is we start to talk a little bit more in depth about our 5 through 1. We have all curated our own lists, but what we're looking to do is when it's just 2 people, when it's just me and Kaleb Lil Boatman, what we like to do is curate an entire top 10 list that's all our own, and then create an entirely different one that might be the choices that the other person would make. So with a third person, it's not really fair, especially if you look at our top 10 animated movies. We like to go off on tirades and we like to get into conversations and talk a whole lot. That episode is almost 3 hours long. We're not doing that today. We're shooting for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So our top 5 is where we're gonna get really into a conversation. But we're each gonna go around the table and talk about our top 10, maybe give 1 or 2 sentences and have a conversation about it, but be really quick. So let's start with
let's go with our guest first.
I was gonna say, let's start with our guest today. Kaleb, the kid, the king, the man who strangled himself or beat himself in a trivia match. What's your top 10?
My number 10 is a fistful of paintballs. I don't know if that's is that a punt for anyone or
that's my number 9, so we can talk about it.
Okay.
No, but that means that I have to make a little bit of an edit to my list for you. I didn't think that would rank as low as it has for you.
So very quickly, I put a fistful of paintballs at 10 because I think it's the worst of the 3 paintball episodes, but that's not saying much because it has a great aesthetic. I love the Western vibe to it, but ultimately the story is not as good as the other 2, which is why I love paintball episodes, so it's number 10 for that reason.
Fair enough. You got anything else you want to say about the episode?
Nah,
all right. Lil Boat, what you got for your number 10?
Yeah, my number 10 is curriculum unavailable. I think the Community does the clip show, the fake clip show, better than anybody else, and they've done it a couple times. I think this is the best version of the fake clip show. I think it's very funny, the idea that they're all actually insane and that they're just imagining Greendale as a place, and I think it gets a lot of laughs from that. And then the jokes, and I really like that storyline where Chang is actually taking control of the school.
That was my 10, and I bumped it for a fistful of paintballs. So that's
how dare you! You should have done what I did and combined a fistful of paintballs and a few paintballs more into one.
I can't. They're different. They're different episodes, so I can't do that.
I can't. I gotta agree with the king, the kid, the man who killed himself. My number 10 is actually mixology certification. Depending on who you go with, mixology 101. Troy's 21st birthday.
Yeah, that is a punt for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that means I gotta rework my Boatman one.
Fair enough.
That doesn't mean it's in my top 5.
Oh,
actually,
okay.
It's at number 7.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I like this episode mainly because you get to know a little bit more about the characters. Like, obviously, you have the whole Jeff and Britta thing. They go back and forth talking about this different bar on a certain street. And at the end of the episode, you're like, I'm not going to get into it because it's a punt. So we'll go to Lil Boat. Lil Boat. What's your number 9?
And my number 9 is a fistful of paintballs and for a few paintballs more. I combined them as one because I do view these these episodes as one continuous story that do have a change in tone in the middle. It is still one arc, and I think it is like more of a Pierce-based arc, because it is kind of about the relationship and how he has been in the past season 2 and how he became more of an a-hole. So yeah, I really like this.
Hashtag fuck you, Chevy Chase. I still have to pump this because you combined both of those, and I still think that might technically be a cheat of the
Well, it's the only paintball episode I've got on there, so...
Oh my god, that just broke my heart. Oh my god.
I like the paintball episodes. I just like the other 9 that I have on here, or 8 that I have on here more.
I have to change Boatman's top 5 because I had a different paintball episode. This is number 3, so...
Okay. Yeah, no, I have to pump that, and we'll get to it when we get to it. That's a little hurtful. I still can't believe that you combined both of them. My number 9 is actually conspiracy theories and interior design.
Nice.
That's an honorable mention for me.
That didn't even make your list.
That's an honorable mention for mine too. It's an honorable mention for mine too.
I thoroughly enjoy this episode just because of the little twist that you get at the end of it, or actually in the middle of it, where you're like, is he really kind of like the drama teacher, or is he really a conspiracy theory teacher? Yeah, so it's an honorable mention for the both of y'all. King, Killer Koho, what's your number 9, bruv?
Realize I'm eating a cookie. Great timing.
Yeah, don't worry about it. It's cool because we're live. Don't choke on your cookie.
Be careful not to choke on your aspirations. Number 9.
Darth Vader dad joke ever.
Number 9 for me is basic lupine urology.
Oh, okay. Honorable mention.
Honorable mention for me as well.
The parodying of Law and Order was like perfect, and I love the crime story of it. It just made I looked at my list one more time before I made it, and I realized this was not on, so I put it at 9 and bumped curriculum unavailable off because this is a very fun, complete story. I love the subject matter that it covers, and it's a very, very I love crime dramas, so it takes the entire crime drama, the legal, every aspect of what a Law and Order episode would be, and does it perfectly. So
If I'm not wrong, I could be because I've had a little bit to drink today. I don't know if anybody would have been able to notice that. I believe this is the second or the third time that I mentioned Beetlejuice appears in the background.
This is the third time because Beetlejuice walks in the background of this episode. Yes.
Okay.
No, I think the third time is horror fiction and 6 spooky steps.
7 spooky
because
steps.
that's Britta's Halloween episode.
Oh, you might be right.
I think it's the second time.
You know what? We have the internet at our thumb and fingertips. Well,
if it's from season 2, it's the second time.
Well, I checked that. Little Boat, let's get your number 9.
Yeah, my number 9. I just said it's a fistful of paintballs. You mean my number 8?
You're right. Yes, you're number 8.
My number 8 is regional holiday music. I like the songs in this. What?
Not on my list.
This is the Glee Club episode, correct?
Yes, this is the parody of the show Glee, which I was never a fan of. I think it's a great parody of the show Glee. I think it's also a great parody of like the sci-fi stories of like the aliens coming in and slowly kind of taking over everybody's minds, which is clearly referenced in the scene where Jeff does the invasion of the body snatchers. At Britta. So yeah, and I think the songs are all great. I really like this episode.
My thing with this one is like I am a Glee fan, and it's a spot on perfect parody down to like the transitions where they have the people a cappella singing the score for the episode. But for me, the story itself does not stand alone well enough to make a top 10 list. But yeah,
that's fair. Like for me, it works, but I can understand that.
Fair enough. The King, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Advanced.
I do not have that one.
That's a punt. That's a big old punt.
Okay.
My number 8 is actually critical studies.
I don't have that one.
That is a punt.
Okay. Fair enough. King, what's your next one?
My number 7 is I'm prepared to say punt. Remedial Chaos Theory.
I gotta edit your top 5. I had that as number 1 for you.
I actually had it as his number 5. I didn't have it super high, but I definitely had that as his number 5.
No, Remedial Chaos Theory is my number 7. The thing is, it's a good episode. Everyone told me it was the best episode of the show going in, and I definitely enjoy it. But I think the episode gets better when certain things happen later on in the show and certain payoffs come into effect. It retroactively makes the episode a little bit stronger. True. But overall, just in the context of that one episode, it's a fun episode. It's a well-written episode. But ultimately, it's not I've seen better episodes out of Community that stand alone better than Remedial Chaos Theory. But it's a fun episode and a fun premise. It works better in the context of the overall show than its one episode.
I completely understand. So we'll go to me before we go to Little Boat for our number 7. My number 7 is Advanced Gay.
Ooh. That is my least favorite episode of Community ever.
Really?
Yeah. I find it super cringy and kind of bad.
Well, no, I find it super cringy, but the reason why it makes my number 7 is because it really kind of sets up Pierce's dad. And he becomes this not necessarily ultimate big bad, but definitely a big bad that has to be dealt with eventually. And that's why it doesn't make it super high on my list, but I don't know. The fact that you bring drag queens into everything and you bring everything it is about this episode, especially the ivory hairpiece. If you ask me one thing that really stands about Pierce's dad, it's an ivory hairpiece. That's my number 7. Lil Boat, what's your number 7, bruv?
My number 7 is a punt from earlier. It's mixology certification. I think this is, as far as acting goes in the show, I think this is Donald Glover's best performance as Troy. I think this is where he gives his best kind of acting moments. I think in the car when he's yelling at Jeff and Britta. I think he's great, and this is a very Troy-centric episode, and it really works. It's also very funny.
It's definitely a Troy-centric episode. I still don't think that this is his best Troy episode.
Well, I didn't say best Troy episode. I said best performance.
Fair enough. I will still say that I don't think this is his best performed episode. So, I mean, like, my statement still stands. But I like this episode. I really do. Kaleb. Kaleb with a K. What do you think?
I like this episode. I just think it doesn't stand up to a lot of other ones. I think Troy's good in the episode. I think Troy is at his best when he and Abed play off each other in more meaningful ways. Troy is the better character if you take him out and put him on his own. Like, Troy can maintain himself on his own and maintain a story on his own. Whereas once we get into like later halves of season 5 and season 6, I love Abed, but Abed on his own isn't as fun to watch as when he's with Troy. And so I don't know. I think overall with like mixology certification, it's like I just didn't care for the episode as much.
Fair enough.
The Red Door versus Club 7 or whatever the fuck.
No, it's L Street. It's L Street.
L Street and the Red Door.
That's what. So my number 6. Be prepared for a shocker here. My number 6. Pillows and blankets.
I don't
narrowly missed my list.
Narrowly missed mine too.
Really, I love
this episode.
I think this is one of my favorite episodes, and I think it's because of how well they mock so many different early History Channel documentaries about, like, say, the Civil War, and they played out so well, and then like the whole we're sending text messages, but we'll read them as their letters. This episode stands out to me. It doesn't stand out to me as much as in other ones, but it definitely deserves a middle of my list, and that's why I put it at number 6. Lil Boat, what's your number 6?
My number 6 is, I'm guessing, going to be a punt. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
That's a punt, and that means I have to edit your top 5 predictions.
That's a punt for me as well. And I'm not gonna be an asshole and change my list in the
that's the thing. I love this episode. It's just there are 5 more that I like more than it. That's the thing. With all these, I could really it's barely interchangeable. I love all these episodes.
That's completely fine. That's a punt for the both of us though. So let's move into
actually I might have messed up. Yeah, I did mess up. That's my number 6 also. I looked at the wrong column. Yeah, that's my number 6. So
well, y'all go ahead and have a little bit of a conversation about that.
Yeah, I like this episode a lot. I think it's the better of the Dungeons and Dragons because Pierce gets to be the bad guy. And I think Pierce works best when he is the bad guy because I personally don't like the character of Pierce very much. And when he is the antagonist of the group, it's perfect. And that's why they exemplify that. Yeah, fuck you, Chevy. They exemplify that perfectly, and this is like the best episode to show the dynamic of the group. Especially when Pierce is the bad guy.
I think Pierce can function as as kind of a redeemed good guy only in the end of that fistful of paintballs and a few paintballs more, and that moment with him is great. And I think the rest of him in season 3, when he's not playing the bad guy, is not that great.
Chevy Chase is just not my favorite person in this.
I think he's really funny in it when he's playing the bad guy. I think he can be really funny, even though he basically was a jerk the entire time.
No, Chevy Chase is just a dick bag. I think his entire career since 1993 has proved that. But that being said, no. I still don't think it's the better of the two Dungeons and Dragons episodes. So yeah. Kaleb, Koho, what's your number 6?
My number 6 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay, y'all had the same one. Yeah. We'll move into number 5s, and since y'all had the same one, we'll go to you first. What is your number 5? But this is where things get interesting. This is where we start to compile everybody else's lists along with our own. So you have your guess, or you have your number 5, and then you have to guess what our number 5 is as well, and we will tell you if you are.
Well, I say what we do is we take the person, and then we say, okay, Kaleb, me and Jay are gonna guess your number 5, and then we say it, and then Kaleb says his number 5.
Yeah. No, I mean that's fair enough.
I just say that's more efficient.
That's fair enough. My number 5 is obviously incorrect.
Wait, don't say your number 5. Let us guess your number 5.
Well, it wasn't. It was me talking, but okay.
I didn't want you to say your number 5, Jay.
I wasn't gonna say my number 5.
Oh, I thought you said my number 5 is, and okay. Go ahead.
I meant my number 5 is in my number 5 guess for Kaleb the King who killed the kid Koho was actually Remedial Chaos Theory. I didn't think that it would rank too high, let alone too low. I thought number 5 would be a decent area for this one. What was your guess there, Lo?
Well, I changed it around knowing what we got from him, but so my change guess is digital estate planning.
Oh, you know what? I didn't put it on my top 10.
That's fair.
I love that episode. I did not put it on my top 10.
I don't want to spoil anything, but I did not have it on my top 10 either.
Y'all are a bunch of whores. This is one of the better episodes of Community out there.
So my number 5 is the episode that Boatman cheated with for a few paintballs more.
I had that as your number 2.
Oh, I actually had that as your number 3.
For a few paintballs more is my number 5. I think it's the better of the 2 Fistful of Paintballs episodes because you get more of the story. I think the aesthetic and Western vibe of the first half is better than the paintball aesthetic of the second half, but the story is better in the second half than the first. So that's why I valued the story slightly higher than the aesthetic. And
can I say something on that?
Yeah.
I think the reason why you value it a little bit more is because they edge towards Star Wars more in a few paintballs more than they do in a fistful of dollars. I don't care what anybody has to say, but Abed basically becomes Han Solo. So yeah, there's that.
They reference it at the beginning. They go, "Oh, this is more of a Star Wars vibe." So they changed from a fistful of paintballs, and from the Western to the sci-fi. And I think the Western aesthetic is more fun, but I do think the Star Wars archetype story is better.
I think it's because the Western aesthetic can look more natural in the thing where it's harder to kind of capture the Star Wars aesthetic in Greendale's campus.
That's right.
I also think that that when it comes to these 2 episodes, you're right. I think the aesthetic is better in the first one, whereas the look is better in the second. But what I really like is the connection between the Western and Star Wars. Because the thing is that Star Wars was really inspired by like the Westerns of the 50s and 60s in a lot of elements. You know, you have the cowboy in like the white hat, kind of the clean kind of guy, and then you've got the bad cowboy in the black hat, and you can kind of see that with Darth Vader, and you can kind of see a lot of these other elements of a Western that are really inspired by Star Wars. So it's kind of nice to see the evolution of the Western themed episode into the Star Wars themed episode.
Can't disagree with you there. I think more people like Star Wars than like Westerns. I'm not arguing a space opera versus a Western. So we're moving on to what?
I'd rather watch Good, Than Bad, and the Ugly any day than watch any Star Wars movie.
That is sacrilege. You can leave. Anyway.
You go ahead, and we officially decided to replace Kaleb Boatman with Kaleb the King Koho.
We have now renamed this podcast The King and I.
Exactly. And the only thing left on Earth is...
Is it too late to title this episode The King and I?
That'd be great.
Oh, I mean, if we could pluralize I wouldn't have a problem with that.
The King and I's.
The King and Us.
The King and Us.
Yeah.
We will discuss that with our producers.
A Burnz, a boat, and a pizza place, and also a Kaleb.
a burning boathouse on a pizza place. Also, Kaleb is there.
Also, Kaleb is there. Who just went? I'm sorry.
I just did my 5. So
okay.
We'll just move on to someone else's.
Low Boat, your 5 was what?
My number 5 is the moment that I fell in love with the series community.
We have to make our predictions, though, don't we?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry.
My guess for your number 5, Boatman, is contemporary American poultry.
Jay?
Oh. My guess for Lil Bo's number 5 was actually G.I. Jeff.
Ooh.
Caleb is right on the money. It's contemporary American poultry.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
This is the moment where I fell in love with the series community. I love the parody of the gangster movies. This is really the first time that they went for like an actual thematic episode, and it really works. The Goodfellas storyline, I think the back and forth between Jeff and Abed and the entire dynamic of the group is really interesting. And I love the parody of the Layla scene from Goodfellas, where we see the montage of everybody's stuff that Abed got them be wrecked or taken away and all that. And it's very entertaining. And just the idea of a gangster movie, but instead of like money or drugs, the commodity is chicken fingers.
I love this episode as well. It is my second favorite of the first season. Overall, I think the community got a lot better after season 1, and I think season 1's still good. I just think they improved with like seasons 2 and 3, so that's where a lot of my episodes come from, which I think is like the sweet spot of community. But it just narrowly missed my list because I love this episode. But yeah, it's a great episode.
All right. So my number 5.
Oh, now we need to give our predictions.
My prediction for Jay for his number 5 is a fistful of paintballs.
I've got digital estate planning.
Ooh, he is 2 for 2. Head on. Actually, I'm sorry. It's not 2 for 2. It's a Lil Boat. Oh. Lil Boat gets it right. It's digital estate planning. I thoroughly enjoy this episode. It doesn't matter whether or not Giancarlo Esposito was actually a part of it. Anything with an 8-bit movie, or an 8-bit video game, definitely has a little bit of a soft spot in my heart. Seeing as I'm a little bit of an old individual, I'm not 30 yet. Okay, 8-bit was out of my time when I was playing video games when I was younger. But god damn it, dude, if you don't fucking watch this episode and get a little bit of nostalgia for anything, son of a bitch. Number 5, this is probably the perfect spot for this episode. Yeah, this is just one of them fucking episodes where you're like, oh yeah, okay, cool. They didn't want to have everybody, they just wanted to give everybody ADR, they just want to give everybody voiceover. They couldn't have chosen a better way to do this. They couldn't have given anybody a better way to do this.
I love this episode. It was my favorite of season 2, but I gave it a little bit extra or a little more thought, and I ended up, or 3, and I ended up settling on Remedial Chaos Theory as my favorite of the season. So, and then when I was looking at my 10, I was like, episodes I just prefer more. It's a great episode, and I love it. So it's just narrowly missed my list.
Fair enough. All right.
It's back to Kaleb, I believe.
Yeah, guesses for my number 4, folks.
My guess is wrong. I said a fistful of paintballs. I wasn't going to change it up on the fly.
I am changing it up on the fly. And I'm going to say intermediate documentary filmmaking.
You just said one of my least favorite episodes of Community with intermediate filmmaking. I absolutely hate the episode where Pierce is faking it and doing. I hate that episode. I found it so boring. But the actual answer for my number 4 is geothermal escapism. Troy's final episode in season 5 of Community is my number 4 because it is so emotional, so heartwarming. It's the perfect send-off for the character of Troy. The hot lava episode is basically their version of doing paintball in season 5, and I love it. It's a great way of doing paintball without doing paintball. And so that I picked this one because of the Troy and Abed dynamic, where it's like when my two favorite characters have to say goodbye to each other, and it was so painful, but it was so bittersweet. And I think this is Troy's best performance of the series is in his last episode because it's all the touchy-feely, like he gets to do one last big character piece before he leaves, and Abed and gets to play one last big fun game with them. So that's why I absolutely love geothermal escapism.
I think this is a great episode. It just barely missed my list. I love the parody of like the Mad Max style post-apocalyptic movies. I think that there's some really funny gags in here, like Chang rewarding his kind of army with M&Ms. I think that's a whole lot of fun. I think there's a lot of fun stuff this episode, and I think you get the emotion down. And I just love that as Troy is leaving, they play the song "Come Sail Away" by Styx as a callback to the first episode.
Yeah.
Come sail away. Sorry, I
okay. So then Boatman's number 4?
Yeah. Are your guesses?
Okay, my guess was geothermal escapism, so I don't have anything to replace that.
Actually, my number 4 guess for Lil Boat was advanced documentary filmmaking.
You mean documentary filmmaking Redux?
No, those are 2 different episodes.
Is advanced documentary filmmaking from which one is advanced? Is that the one with Ben Chang?
Let me go ahead and double check that.
Like that the Changnesia one? Did you think I had a season 4 episode in my top 5?
Advanced documentary filmmaking. Yeah, that's the Changnesia one.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna have a season 4 episode in my top 5.
Look, like I said,
especially not a Changnesia episode.
I think his arc in season 4 is weird, very weird.
Yeah, no. I think he gets some good lines in Intro to Knots, but yeah, no. My actual number 4 is a punt from earlier. It's Critical Film Studies, also known as My Dinner with Andre with Abed.
I don't have that one, but it's a fine episode.
You see, I really love the movie My Dinner with Andre. I think that's a really underrated 80s movie. It's a really interesting drama, and I think doing it in kind of that style was really fascinating. And then also going back to seeing The Party with Pulp Fiction, I think that's a whole lot of fun. Those 2 dynamics really work. And I think really, I love the Jeff Abed dynamic. And any episode that focuses on that, I really love.
And any episode where you get to watch Britta get basically fired is a fucking W.
Britta's the AT&T of people.
You're not wrong. Okay, so my prediction for Jay's number 4 is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
I have Remedial Chaos Theory.
Ooh. My number 4 is actually Modern Warfare. First paintball episode.
That is your number 1.
I will say that is a punt. I had that as your number 2, but that's a punt.
Really? Yeah, no, that's Modern Warfare is my first one. I actually thoroughly enjoy the shit out of this. It did rank higher than certain things for me, and I think I just hold this one a little bit in a higher place because I really do enjoy the paintball episodes, and as much as a few paintballs more hits that Star Wars necessity for me, nothing can beat the first one. So that's my number 4. My guess for Lil Boat's number 3, he already said it was an honorable mention, I do believe. My guess for Lil Boat's number 3 was actually Pillows and Forts.
My guess for number 3 is Remedial Chaos Theory.
Right on the money.
Boom.
Ooh. Yeah. Remedial Chaos Theory. I think this is one of the best written episodes. I think it's really entertaining, and I think it shows us why we need all these characters and the dynamics of them, and that each character has an important role in this show that we call Community. I think it's incredibly funny, and it goes into the dynamics of the characters and really gets the emotions down. Kaleb, I was in your position of me liking this episode but not quite loving it as much as everybody else did when I first saw it, but on subsequent rewatches I have fell in love with this episode.
Okay, fair enough. All right, are we doing mine now? My number 3?
Yep.
Yeah.
Take your guesses.
For your number 3, I had a few paintballs more.
I've got basic intergluteal pneumostatistics.
Oh, that one missed my list barely too. My number 3 is App Development and Condiments, which is the best episode of season 5. So the best episode of season 5. It is the episode
Meow Beans.
With Meow Beans. It is the best episode of season 5. It's very witty, very fun. It's almost like another paintball episode in the sense of like it's a campus-wide post-apocalypse episode, and those are my favorite. Like I absolutely love it when they do
Black Mirror before Black Mirror pulled a Black Mirror.
Exactly. Yeah. My favorite kinds of episodes are the ones where the campus is completely like transformed, and we get to see these characters in like crazy post-apocalyptic weird warfare situations. And I loved the like YA feel almost of this episode. So it lands at number 3 for me.
What I love about this episode is, what you said, the young adult movie feel. It feels like something straight out of the Hunger Games, especially like with the costumes and everything. Like this feels like a direct parody of the Hunger Games, and I love it.
And Jeff's stand-up set is goddamn killer.
You ever notice how number 4s are always, who's always eating apples? It's
number 2. Number 2s are always eating apples. Even without the full context of like everything, it kills. And how he it shows the progression of the set to the point where he goes back and references things that he said earlier in the set. It's a perfect stand-up comedy set. Yeah.
That's so great. And then what Jay said is right, that Black Mirror basically ripped this episode off. With Nosedive, they completely ripped off.
Spoiler alert. Let's throw it out there, especially for those of us out there who haven't seen all of Black Mirror. If you've watched Community and then you happen to watch an episode of Black Mirror and it is very similar to an episode of Black Mirror that you just watched. There was a lawsuit about this.
Wait, there was a lawsuit?
Yeah. But the individual who happened to write that episode of Black Mirror contended that he had never watched an episode of Community. There was a little bit of controversy around this episode of Black Mirror.
I did not know there was a lawsuit.
Yes.
All right, so my guess for Jay's number 3 is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Actually, no, I didn't get a chance to say it while we were all talking, but my number 3 was actually App Development and Condiments.
Oh, really? Sick.
Yes, that was definitely my number 3. Meow Meow Beans. Everybody hit everything I was gonna say about it right on the head. I don't care about the YA aspect about it, but I thoroughly enjoyed out of this episode. I got more of a Logan's Run type of feel out of it, especially with the upper echelon trying to make all of these decisions and then throw everything else down upon the rest of the folks. But I really liked this episode because one citizen's revolt will be the downfall of everybody.
Okay, so who's number 2 are we doing now?
Let's go with Lil Boat. I think he's up next.
Okay, my guess for his number 2 is Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
My guess for his number 2 is actually documentary filmmaking Redux.
Jay is right on the money. It is documentary filmmaking Redux. I did not have Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas on my list.
Whoa.
I like that episode. I think I really only watch it during Christmas though. Like I don't really like watching it outside of Christmas. So, but who knows? But yeah, documentary filmmaking Redux. I love this episode. I love the Dean, and I think this is his best episode as far as a Dean-centric episode. And his just kind of descent into madness, just wanting to perfect the commercial so that Luis Guzman can show up and be in it because he wants it to be perfect for character actor Luis Guzman. And it's great. There are so many funny gags with Jeff just going full method acting into this and just slowly becoming the Dean with his I've always been bald. I am bald. So many funny gags. I love this episode.
This is the best documentary episode by far. Because of exactly what you said with the Dean's descent into madness. And I love that this is all for Luis Guzman, who's a D-list actor at best.
I'd say C.
Maybe
I like him in Punch Drunk Love. I think he's really good in Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, but it's he's definitely not a household name. And I love that that's the person that they go crazy for, and I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, the bit actor, I love it. Okay, so we're moving on to what, number 2s?
Yep, number 2s. So
that was my number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are we predicting my number 2 right now?
We are.
Okay.
A little bit. You want to go first? You want to guess his number 2?
Yeah, I have no idea what it is because I had a few paintballs more, but it's not gonna be that. So I'll say I have no idea actually. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, well,
I'll say the Ocean's 11 style one. What was the name of that one? I don't remember what
Do you remember what season it's from?
What?
Do you remember what season it's from?
It's from season 3. It's when they're trying to do the heist and break the Dean out. You know
what? That's the first Chang Dynasty.
Yes, that's the name of the episode.
I love that episode.
It is great.
My guess was actually film studies.
The answer is Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas.
I should have guessed that.
This episode is the best character episode in the history of the show because this episode is all about Abed. It's the first time we realize that Abed is actually got serious issues, but we love him anyway. And you can't, and it's not something to fix, it's something to adapt to. And seeing the entire episode from the perspective of Abed was amazing. The stop motion is breathtaking. The craftsmanship of the episode is never been touched again in the show. I think it's the best produced episode of Community ever, and it can't be touched. That being said, it comes in number 2 because there's one more episode that I think has a better story. is overall what I think of as the definitive Community episode. But this is a very close second because it's all Abed, and I think Abed is Community. So
I also think that a lot of people enjoyed Bankin and Ras.
Mm-hmm.
Or Rankin and Bass. Bankin and Ras. I always get those two confused. It doesn't matter.
I just want to say that I do like this episode. I think there's a better Abed-centric episode where we see it from his eyes, and it may or may not be my number one.
All right. So we're into my number 2, and I will give y'all the floor.
I am predicting at this point it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
I think it's got to be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons because he said that was a pun.
50-50. He punted both, so.
One of you are correct.
Or no, it's got to be Advanced Dungeons and Dragons because he said Advanced was better.
Officially changing your answer?
I'm officially changing my answer to Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
You are both correct at that point in time. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is my number 2 best episode of Community of all time.
I think this is the better one because of like the dynamic between Pierce and the group, but I understand.
But the entire reasoning behind that isn't necessarily Pierce and the group for me. My whole thing about this is a great story, yes, but I think there's more, especially when you bring in, oh God, why am I forgetting his name?
Fat Neil?
No, not Fat Neil. Fat Neil's in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. David Cross, and what is his fucking name?
That's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Fat Neil is actually in the first Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I'm talking about David Cross and his father in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Jonathan Banks.
Jonathan Banks. Thank you very much. I thoroughly enjoy this because it really comes down to the fact that outside of everything in metagame, whether or not you want to go like this and talk about meta, if you're a part of that community, you have somebody who has labeled this individual Fat Neil, trying without being like, oh, I was the first one to call you Fat fucking Neil when I saw you by the watering fountain, trying to boost an individual's self-confidence by not trying to change an individual, but by trying to adapt to what it is that he saw as fun. And regardless of whether or not Pierce and the group's dynamic is one thing, you get to see the group interact with individuals outside of their study room with Fat Neil, and I like this one. I'm not gonna lie. Nobody's ever called me Fat J because if they did that, I would have fucking sat on them.
Okay, so my guess for Boatman's number 1 is flawed because at this point I had app development and condiments in my predictions and shit, so I really have no clue what your number 1 is, but I'm gonna take a stab in the dark and say the fucking pilot because I have no clue.
Jay?
My guess for Low Boat's number 1 is actually Geography of Global Conflict.
That's a good episode. Did not make my list.
Wow.
I think you guys are going to be really surprised with my number 1. I've got Virtual Systems Analysis. Or the Dreamatorium episode.
Oh, okay.
Is this the first Evil Abed episode?
Yeah. I don't.
No,
like
Evil Abed does not show up in this episode.
Yeah, he does. It's because he has the beard on. It's not the real Evil Abed because it's Abed creating the fantasy of Evil Abed. But this episode is not good in my opinion. It's a little too up its own ass. But I love Abed. It's just this was a little too much. Like it was a little too weird.
I love it because I like seeing how Abed views all these characters, because that's the thing, is it shows us why we need Abed as a character, because the thing is we're not really seeing Abed for most of the episode. We're seeing him interpret these other characters. So we get to see, I love seeing Joel McHale playing Jeff being played by Abed. So it's this kind of 3 different layers of acting going on. And I think that's really interesting, seeing all these different characters through the eyes of Abed and being portrayed by him. And I think it gets a whole lot of fun. And I think it can be pretty visually interesting, and it's a unique way to get all these actors in there. And I find the episode really funny, but I think the emotional payoff with Abed in the locker and Annie talking to him, I think that gets some really good emotional conflict. I really enjoyed the episode.
That's fair. I just think the better episode is Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, because we get to see the world.
That's fair.
Everything in that one goes more Abed.
This episode just hit me emotionally.
That's fair. Okay. Jay's, I think obviously is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
Hold on. We're not on me.
Oh, okay.
We're on you, as a matter of fact, Mr. Red Beanie.
Make your predictions.
I think it's gotta be Modern Warfare.
You
didn't have that, so it's gotta be Modern Warfare.
I took a shot in the dark, I'm not gonna lie. His episodes are, as we've seen, a little bit hard to nail down. So I went the politics of human sexuality.
Which one is that one?
That would actually be episode number 11.
Oh, is that the one with the STD fair?
Yes, that's the one where Annie has to teach the old folk how to put condoms on.
I didn't have
that is an utterly forgettable episode to me. I don't have anything really from season 1.
A lot of early season 1 kind of gets forgettable. Like, it's watchable, but it's forgettable.
I had one episode from season 1, and it is my number 1, and it is Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare is the best episode of Community because it is the definitive episode. The first time we bring paintball in is the moment that I knew this series was right for me, because this paintball episode, it keeps the entire, it's the payoff of the first season's story arcs for me. Because Jeff and Burnz get together. We get to see Chang fully embrace him being kind of an asshole and go in and work for the Dean to just end the game. There's so much great action, and also it's the best episode of the series, directed by Justin fucking Lin from The Fast and the fucking Furious, baby.
I thought this was directed by the Russos.
No. This one is directed by Justin Lin.
This is the one paintball episode not directed by the Russos.
Yep, the first paintball episode is Justin Lin, who knows how to do action better than anybody.
Cousin to Jeremy Lin of the Houston Rockets. No, I'm kidding.
No, but I absolutely love the last shootout when Chang walks in with his 2 guns and just
That's amazing.
It's amazing. The way this episode is shot, the story, everything, it's so tight. It's so perfectly put together. It's constantly surprising and it's constantly fun. It's the episode that I will go back and watch standalone time after time, because it is by far, when I think of Community, I think of Modern Warfare.
Fair enough. We'll go to Little Boat. What is your Kaleb, Koho, what is your guess for Little Boat's number 1?
Well, Little Boat did his, so we're on you.
Yeah.
And me and him both have pinned down that it's Advanced Dungeons and Dragons.
It is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Jonathan Banks and David Cross make this episode for me. I'm not gonna lie. I don't care what anybody has to say. You can sit here and try to make an argument for the group dynamic versus Pierce as the better of the 2 stories. I don't know. There's this whole father versus son dynamic that maybe I'm just a fucked up human individual. I think that they have the better story in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I don't care about Duquesne. I don't care about the Dean and his homoerotic / incestuous fucking infatuation with his father's character. if that's what you want to call it. But I think Jonathan Banks, I don't care. You could put Jonathan Banks across from anybody, and if they're doing something wacky enough, he plays a perfect man. And there are a couple episodes that I might want to go back and retouch upon in later episodes, but this is the epitome of a perfect episode for me because it doesn't have anything to do with the school. Nobody cares about the fucking school. If they cared about the school, they wouldn't have made the fucking flag of the school an anus. But at the exact same point in time, if they cared about the school, they wouldn't have taken them that long, and they would never have put a morph suited white person with black eyes and a pink mouth as the human being for advanced Dungeons and Dragons is the best episode of Community. Go ahead and fight me. Go ahead and at me.
All right, can everyone run down their top 10s again so I know like what everyone's listening to, that way we can like recap?
Of course.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start mine. Number 1 was Modern Warfare. Number 2 was Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. 3 was App Development and Condiments. 4 was Geothermal Escapism. 5 was For a Few Paintballs More. 6 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. 7 was Remedial Chaos Theory. 8 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. 9 was Basic Lupine Neurology, and 10 was A Fistful of Paintballs.
Little boat.
My number 10 was Curriculum Unknown. My number 9 was a combination of A Fistful of Paintballs and For a Few Paintballs More. My number 8 was Regional Holiday Music. My number 7 was Mixology Certification. My number 6 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. My number 5 was Contemporary American Poultry. My number 4 was Critical Film Studies. My number 3 was Remedial Chaos Theory. My number 2 is Documentary Filmmaking Redux. And my number 1 is Virtual Systems Analysis.
Very nice. I have to burp, so give me a second. Since we alternated 10 through 1 and then 1 through 10, I will also follow suit. My number 10 was Mixology 101. My number 9 was Conspiracy Theories and Interior Design. My number 8 was in Critical Film Studies. My number 7 was Advanced Gay. My number 6 was Pillows and Blankets. My number 5 was Digital Estate Planning. My number 4 was Modern Warfare. My number 3 was App Development and Condiments. My number 2 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And my number 1 was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. And ladies and gentlemen, you can see how everybody involved in this has very different ideas when it comes to a top 10. So my question for our guest today is, depending on what it is we choose as our next topic, would you like to come back or not? If you don't, that's cool. That's completely fine. We won't hold it against you. We might hold it against you.
Absolutely would love to come back. This is a fun show, and I absolutely had a blast.
All right, Lil Boat, how do you feel about your choices versus everybody else's choices, whether it's your top 10, your 1 through 5 for the individuals that you went up against today? Not that it's a contest, but some people clearly won and some people clearly lost.
I just want to say that I don't want to come back.
That's too damn bad. You're a co-host. You have to. Ha ha.
Dang it. Okay, I guess I'm coming back. But yeah, no, I think this is really fun. I think the thing about Community is there are so many good episodes that they're so interchangeable that really, like, that's the thing. Is like, I really do like Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. And probably if like this was another show, it would easily make my top 5. But because it's Community, there are so many amazing episodes that I love that like it would probably be like number 20. And that's not because I only think that episode's okay. It's because Community is one of the best shows ever made. And just about every episode from season 2 and season 3 are like perfect.
Hashtag 6 seasons of the movie. So we out here when it comes to all that. Fuck it, because we're not going to do no editing. We're just going to allow this to hit YouTube as is. And if y'all don't like it, y'all can suck a dick. You talk to my Pikachu hat about it. If you don't like it, at me on Twitter. But good luck finding me on Twitter. We'll go around the globe. Kaleb, Koho, where can they find you? Where can they find your rap group?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Kaleb Koho. That is Kaleb with a K, Koho. You can find me on YouTube, Kaleb Koho, where I do music. Koho Productions, where I do film on both channels right now. My movie Chick Part 2 is out for you to watch for free. What is not free is my album Shoot for Teams with my group The Forks, which you can find on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you consume your digital music. If you're into rap music, that is an album that I would highly recommend you check out and help pay for my college. You can find me over on Multiplex Entertainment, where I host Fandom Fight on Fridays, the After Show on Mondays, and the Co-Oscars with Cody Newberry on Thursdays or Saturdays, alternating, depends. But yeah, so I'm over on Multiplex. That's where you can mainly find me. But yeah, all those places.
You can also find me on Multiplex, working with Kaleb Koho, not directly, but I do show up on the after show from time to time on Mondays, as Kaleb said. Warzone also drops usually on Mondays. We're working on getting that schedule back and really getting those matches out for you. I am one of the showrunners of Warzone, along with Brian Michaels and Cody Newberry. We've got some fun ideas, some revamps. We can't wait to get those out to you in good time. And then keep watching Burnz with Boatman. This is a really fun show. I really love doing this show, despite my fake protests. Yeah.
Boatman does not share an office with me. He is 5 aisles down in the cubicles on the corner office.
Yeah.
We have a restraining order on him. We have to be as far apart in the office as possible.
Yeah. That's what you get for not letting me have cake the last Tuesday. Just passing it around. You let everybody else have cake. I didn't get a piece of the cake.
So you can find